Have you ever fallen in love with someone twice? I did, with my high school boyfriend, Ethan. The first time was easy. We were 16, dumb, and full of hope. The second time was 10 years later, and it was perfect, until I found out why. Ethan was my first love, my first everything. But by the time we were 20, I was in college with a plan, and he was on his parents' couch with a video game controller. He had no job, no ambition, and no idea what he wanted to do with his life. I loved him, but I couldn't build a future on I'll figure it out someday. Breaking up with him was the hardest thing I'd ever done. We didn't talk for a decade. I graduated, built a career in marketing, and moved to a new city. I dated other people, but no one ever felt like Ethan did. Then, out of nowhere, I saw him at an alumni event. He looked different. He was wearing a tailored suit. He stood taller, and he had this quiet confidence I'd never seen before. He told me he owned a successful graphic design firm. He traveled. He asked about my job, remembering details about my career goals I'd mentioned when we were kids. He was charming and mature. He asked me to dinner, and I said yes. The next few months were a dream. He was the Ethan I fell in love with, but better. He was thoughtful, driven, and romantic. He'd bring me coffee in the morning exactly how I liked it. He planned dates to art exhibits because he knew I loved painting. He even remembered a silly dream I once had about visiting a specific little town on the coast and took me there for a weekend. I was falling for him all over again, harder this time, because this was a man I could build a life with. This was the man I always hoped he'd become. One night, I was at his place making dinner while he was on a work call in the other room. I needed to look up a recipe on my phone, but the battery was dead. I saw his laptop on the counter and figured I'd just use that. It was already open. The screen showed his desktop, and there was a folder right in the middle named Second Chance. I felt a weird little chill, but my curiosity got the best of me. I clicked on it. Inside were dozens of subfolders. One was labeled likes, dislikes. Another was career goals. Another dream life. My heart started pounding. I opened the likes, dislikes folder. It was full of screenshots. Screenshots of my Instagram posts, my Facebook check-ins, my old blog from college. There were notes. Loves coffee from the daily grind, hates cinnamon. Favorite artist, Monet. Mentioned it in a 2018 post. Talks about wanting a dog, specifically a golden retriever. I clicked on the career goals folder. It had detailed notes about my professional ambitions, pulled from my LinkedIn profile and articles I'd shared. He had a document outlining my 5-year plan, as if he were studying for an exam. He hadn't just remembered the little things about me. He had researched me. He had spent years tracking my life online, taking notes, and building himself into the exact man I would want. When he walked back into the kitchen, I couldn't speak. I just turned the laptop screen towards him. He saw the open folder, and the color drained from his face. He didn't try to make an excuse. He just sank into a chair and put his head in his hands. He told me that after I left him, he was a wreck for a year. He realized I was right, that he was wasting his life. He started small, just getting a job, but then he started looking at my social media. He said, at first, it was just to see if I was happy, but then it became his motivation. Every time I posted about something I admired, ambition, kindness, a love for travel, he took it as a personal challenge. I posted about a charity 5K, so he started running and got in shape. I wrote a blog post about how important financial stability was, so he went back to school and poured every ounce of energy into building his company. He hadn't been pretending. He had actually done the work. He had genuinely become this person, but he had used my life as the instruction manual. He built his entire existence around becoming the man he thought I wanted. He fell in love with me once, and then he rebuilt himself from the ground up just for the chance that I might fall in love with him twice.